Uh, we are live. Hi, Julia.
Hi, Aya. How you doing?
Just fine. I don't know if you heard it, but Summer said, okay.
That's cool. I like that she's so responsive or talkative.
Yeah. They each have their own thing. The cockatiels just like to sing.
That's cool that they like to sing. What do they sing, like certain songs, or it's just more like a bird type
it's
song?
just bird song. But did you hear Summer? Summer said, okay.
That's great. If you ask Summer a question, will she respond, or is it more spontaneous?
It's more spontaneous. I can't get him to do anything. It's just whatever he wants to do.
Very cool. Now, when Sword was there, like, can she get him to respond to her? Like, I'm just always curious, like, how this kind of works.
Yeah, she used to just repeat words to him.
That's
he would say them back to her.
Oh, well, that, I guess, like, if you kept working on it, maybe eventually he would, I don't know, like, huh. So anyway, I'm trying to share this live right now. And
Okay.
Another thing, well, we all know this, is that YouTube's making it harder to tag people.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not.
I should probably try also at the same time that you're doing this. I should probably try to share it on my.
I can share it on your Twitter page if you like. What I can do is just let me do it. It just makes me kind of slow. But if you want, you can share like what you're eating or whatever you and Bo are doing right now, or like what's going on.
Yeah, no, I'll just have to. I can only do one thing at a time. I'm terrible. I can't.
No. If you let me share, I
can. Yeah, so I'm just sharing on Twitter, but first I have to go to my account, and then I have to find where I'm subscribed to my other account. Isn't that ridiculous that I have to subscribe to myself? Because I have a subscription to my own channel. Otherwise, how would I find it? So
yeah, I kind of have to do the same thing. And then I did tweet it, but I want to tweet it that I'm with you too, because then if I don't, they don't know that. See, they're making it more tricky. Like, I feel like, okay, what is the point of social media if you take away the ease of being able to use it?
Right.
That's my question. Like, we have social media, but who is it for? And I think we kind of, like, what I'm seeing is just like the bigger media outlets became a little jealous that people were like growing a presence for themselves. So they wanted to make it more difficult just for a rate to find things. That's kind of my impression of this whole thing.
Yeah, obviously it's about who gets to speak and be heard.
Yeah, which is it's a very relevant topic right now, because even if you don't like certain people, the fact that they try to silence people, that is a concern for me. Like, you might not like somebody, you might not like their personality. Like, there are, like, I'm not gonna go into it, but there's certain people, I don't like him. Like, there's a lot of things he says and does that really rub me the wrong way. But what I don't like is that we have entities that are governmental that try to silence him. So I might not like him personally, but why are we trying to subvert free speech? That's what I don't like,
Yeah, I agree. And in my case, being heard, sometimes it's just a matter of having enough breath to get the words out. And for somebody to make their sound louder so that my sound is drowned out, I don't appreciate that.
Oh, do you mean, am I talking too loud?
Oh, no. Okay,
no. You just mean metaphorically, like metaphorically.
Metaphorically, that's what they're doing. They're like using a loudspeaker so that that people can only hear the people with the loudspeaker, and the people with the loudspeaker are the establishment media.
Yeah.
And so everybody else is drowned out.
That's a very good analogy. And by the way, it kind of makes me think, well, they're kind of insecure right now. Any like media outlet that's kind of sponsored, they have a lot of insecurity to do this. We have to keep that in mind.
Yeah. They're very afraid that anybody would think differently from how they want them to think.
The irony of it is, I think a lot of people are questioning things more when you see them do, like, use these tactics. They say, well, there's no government propaganda, but yeah, actually there kind of is, and you read some of it. And I'm not going to go deep into it, but yeah, the younger people are not falling for it, and more so all the time, you know?
I hope so. I hope so. But I mean, I get asked really funny questions like, somebody asked, is Bo your, are you a sanctuary or is Bo your pet? And I had to answer neither, but this either or kind of thinking, you know?
Yeah, people, they don't think multifaceted anymore. It's either this way or that.
Exactly. So people are certainly being brainwashed to have either, you know, a pro or a con idea about almost everything. And even our friend, the treatment that our friend Kate Gladstone's, you know, she gave a contribution to the New York Times about handwriting.
Mm-hmm.
But they are like either for cursive or against handwriting, and they don't understand that there are all sorts of handwritings, and that handwriting might be a very good thing and cursive might not be so great. So
yeah, I don't know what the big controversy is. When I was younger, I used to like writing in cursive because that's what they taught us, but just naturally over time, what happened was when I do write, I find that printing is just easier.
Yeah,
I like cursive, but printing is easier. And when I was in school, the teachers had so many struggles trying to make the kids write in cursive, and they didn't want to write in cursive. They wanted to print. By middle school, nobody cared. Our middle school teacher was like, you can write the assignment however you want. It was like the elementary school teachers. They were so obsessed that it had to be in cursive. The middle school teacher was like, I really don't care as long as I can read it.
but you know, there's handwriting and then there's cursive. Cursive is only one style of handwriting.
It is. You're right.
You know, and so you, beyond just printing like in first grade or whatever, there's different kinds of handwriting. And, you know, for instance, I write in Hebrew. When I write in handwriting, I never join the letters.
No.
Because that's not what you do, but it's still handwriting and it looks different.
It looks very stylish. It's very beautiful looking. And isn't Arabic the same way too? I don't think they join all.
No. Actually, Arabic does join
everything.
The letters. Yeah. So there's kind of a, you know, there's a very digital kind of look to print. And then there's handwriting that is more digitized, where things are more individual. And then there's flowing together handwriting. And the Arabic handwriting is very flowing together. There might be some kind of idea there about the ideology of the people who like everything to flow together, and the people who like everything to be kind of distinct and more digital.
Yeah, there could be. That's interesting. I just never knew this was so controversial. I just thought, well, you write the way you want to write. I just don't understand where all the hate for her comes from with this topic.
Well, it's not for her or against her. It's about cursive. Cursive is just one specific way of handwriting. There are lots of ways. And apparently the teachers were all at one point taught this cursive handwriting, which is not it's not really as traditional as some of the older handwritings. It's
not traditional at all. Like the kind that we got taught was from a conference that they went to in the 80s called Danelian or something. It was a conference. They were sent to this conference. They were paid to go to this conference, and they were supposed to come back and teach it because there was a textbook that a company sold. That was why we were learning that kind of handwriting. In my experience, it had nothing to do with tradition.
Okay. All right. So this is what this is about. And it's so funny because to me, that's such a narrow field. I mean, it's just a very small slice of life. It's not the big picture. And yet there's almost this cloak and dagger thing going on just about that with regard to politicians and the schools.
Mm-hmm.
If we didn't have public schools, I don't think we'd have this problem with cursive either.
Yeah, I guess like it is a really big controversy. I guess because, okay, I taught for a few years, but I've had so much distance from that. I'm just so distanced from it at this point because, to be honest with you, I thought the public school system has so many problems, but to be so obsessed with teaching one form of handwriting just is nonsense to me. But it is about the Common Core curriculum, right? Essentially,
well, I don't know. They had this problem way before Common Core. So this Common Core is recent, very recent.
Yeah, but I guess in my school, well, my experiences, we didn't have this problem as much. Like some of the elementary school teachers were obsessed with the cursive. When I got to middle school, nobody cared. Like the teachers, they just did not care. And in high school, they didn't care how you wrote. So it's interesting because I feel like I was lucky, I guess, because I had a few teachers that were obsessed with it. But after 5th grade, nobody cared anymore. Like they were like, you write, pick which way you want to write, and that's it. And then when computers were in, they were like, you could type your paper, you could write your, I don't know. I just didn't, I guess I'm lucky because I didn't have a lot of backlash with this.
Well, you have beautiful handwriting, whatever you do. There are other people who, and I'm among them, I didn't have that big a problem because actually I got some advice about what to do, which is very similar to the advice that Kate gives people. Mm-hmm. So I don't have the most beautiful handwriting. I do have hand-eye coordination issues. They're not serious, and I've never had a really big problem about it. But other people, and some of them are brilliant,
yes, of course,
have really hand-eye coordination problems that make it very difficult for them to follow the rules of cursive. But that does not mean that they cannot learn to write legibly or that it's not important that they write legibly. It is important, and they can be taught.
Of course they can. But like I think Kate was sharing, a lot of really brilliant people like dentists and doctors, they have horrible handwriting, and that doesn't mean they can't like do some very high level thinking skills. I mean,
right, exactly. And there's just a certain level of school teacher, and they really are the school marmish kind, mm-hmm. Who actually think that the basics include your hand-eye coordination, and it's not possible for you to be intelligent unless you have good hand-eye coordination. So they actually think that they're going to fix your brain by making your handwriting pretty.
Wow. See, I guess I'm really lucky. I didn't have any teachers like that. I had a couple that were obsessed with cursive, but I just kind of escaped that. And then when I was teaching, it was at different levels where cursive wasn't really being pushed yet. So maybe I'm just lucky because I wasn't in that bubble. They're in a bubble. That's my opinion. Like they're in the cursive bubble. But it's not traditional, really. I think what they're being taught is something they went to a conference to teach. Now, there's other bubbles I was in. Like there was another bubble that I thought was really strange where they sent us to a conference and they were telling us that we had to tell 6th graders how to pronounce the alphabet in some strange way that I've never heard before. And then everybody was just going along with it like parrots, okay? And they were like miming what the instructor was telling them. And I was just sitting here and I thought it was ridiculous. And I was like, I'm not going to go back. And they would laugh. Like if you told 6th graders that they had to sit here and pronounce the alphabet in this way that the instructor in the this textbook thought was appropriate, they would laugh at you.
Yeah.
Personally, I would not do that. So I think there's many bubbles in public education, and there's a textbook that wants to push like their product, and then they're like, oh, okay, let's get together with whoever's writing the standards, and that's what becomes what they teach. It's not about tradition. It's about a product that's state sponsored, essentially.
Right. But you know, but the same sorts of things that they're doing about cursive, they're doing with regard to vaccination. You know,
they are.
So it's not like vaccination is traditional. We've always done it. We can say exactly when it started and what it started with and how few vaccines there were to begin with and how the first ones you just would take a sugar cube and then they started doing injections. And, you know, to say it's traditional to have this many vaccines, well, it's not. But instead of saying it's traditional, they now will substitute science for that. They'll say, well, this is scientific. Are you anti-science? You know, if you're questioning that. And actually science, the method of science is to question everything. You're supposed to.
And there's a lot of like, well, a lot of people who don't want to take all those vaccines or they don't want to inject themselves with all those antibiotics. And by the way, not all doctors are really pro antibiotic because the dentist school that I went to in Loma Linda, they're more about like trying to be a little bit more on the natural side. They were saying they would prescribe antibiotics, but they're more cautious about it. They don't want to prescribe antibiotics for everything, you know?
Right. Well, you know, there is a backlash that is awaiting all of us pretty soon. Antibiotics are not going to be, they're not going to be able to save us anymore because we overuse them.
Yeah.
And all these organisms that now are immune to them. And the same goes for fungicides. There's a growing number of fungi that are not something that we know how to kill. And, you know, there are hospitals that are not telling us that they have an infestation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, do you want to share your food? Because
I'll share what I'm eating. It's just like toast. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of bread, but I've always kind of liked the Ora wheat dill rye bread. And, you know, like everybody's like, you have to eat wheat bread. But I honestly decided if I'm going to eat bread, I don't even really love wheat bread, but I kind of like just the dill rye because it tastes good. So I eat what tastes good to me. Like, I like this. So if I'm going to eat bread, I like the dill rye ones. The Russian one, the Jewish one, and the dill rye one. Those are my favorite three of the Ora wheat. So I'll eat that, and there's just like vegan cream cheese on it.
Okay. All right. It looks delicious. I actually do like rye bread, and I used to eat a lot of it when I lived in Israel. And I'm thinking that I'm going to make an experiment and try to eat some bread when I'm in Israel and see if it has the same effect as American bread.
Have you ever tried the Ora wheat one? It's more expensive, okay? It's more expensive, but it's a little bit better. It's almost more like a European bread. And our European friend, he said he only liked the Ora wheat one. Like, if you're going to eat bread, I actually like this one. Most of the American bread, it's not that great, but the Ora wheat one's okay. But it's like almost $4 for it. It's not cheap. But if I'm going to eat bread, I like this one.
Yeah, I'm not going to go out of my way to eat any American bread, but I will try some abroad.
You could. It's probably really good, like in Israel, I think, or Europe, you know.
So this is what I'm eating. It's some meat. And I got something that is like chop for the parrot. Mm-hmm. So it's got a little bit of chopped vegetables in with it.
Oh, cool. So it's like a stir fry kind of, or?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So the parrot like eat some of it too. That's cool.
Yeah, and this is my dessert. I'll show you what I put in for the parrot. So you can see what it looks like better because this is what Summer has. It's just chopped vegetables.
Nice. And the orange it's a mandarin orange?
Yeah, it's a mandarin.
Those are good. I like mandarin oranges.
Did you hear Summer? He said, okay.
Okay, he wants to eat maybe, or he's just saying okay.
He's just saying okay.
So was there any other like topics lately that were on your mind that you wanted to kind of share with us?
Well, I've been thinking about tit for tat.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what that is?
Like it's this for that. Like it's kind of like one thing happens for like and another reaction kind of thing. Like this for that.
Yeah, but it's a policy to get people not to hurt you. Really, that's all what it is. So basically, under tit for tat, somebody's nice to you, you're nice to them. No problem. Now, somebody bites you, you bite them back harder. Now, why do you have to bite them harder than they bit you?
To show them that it's a response to show them, well, if you're going to do that, you're going to get a consequence, basically.
Right, exactly. And the consequence is going to be worse than what you did. So don't do it.
Yeah. Well, I've heard parents say they used to do that. They used to spank their kids, but now they're like, can I spank my kid in public? Because somebody might think something bad, you know?
But it's not just kids, it's our police officers.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
I mean, let's say somebody gets a ticket and they weren't, it wasn't correct. And let's say they go to court with an attorney and they prove the ticket wasn't correct, that they didn't do anything wrong. Now, tit for tat would say, now, instead of the citizen having to pay the ticket to the state, the state should have to pay the ticket to the citizen. Well, does that happen? No.
No, it doesn't. It would be ideal, but our ticketing system is skewed anyway. It's not fair many times.
And actually, it would be better if the individual officer had to pay, not the state, because the state is us.
Yeah.
So,
well,
as long as we don't have that system of tit for tat built in to everything in all of our laws, we're not going to have justice.
That's a good point. I think with the ticketing system, though, it's just not fair many times. This is my problem with tickets. You can give out all the tickets you want, but in California, people drive horribly anyway, and they probably give out more tickets because there's so many people. They can ticket for so many things. Well, guess what? 90% of the time, people are like, well, I'm not going to get a ticket. I'm going to speed. I'm going to drag race. I'm going to nearly hit you in the intersection and scream at you. There's nobody here. There's no consequence. So the only time they really care about it is like, oh, if I might get a ticket. And the more people you have, the more opportunities you have to disregard the rules because they're going to be off doing something else and distracted with this and that. So tickets don't make people more courteous on the road,
Yeah.
What is the purpose of ticketing?
It's the purpose is fundraising.
So maybe they should stop. Like, could there be another way to encourage people to drive better without handing out tickets and not targeting people who weren't breaking the law in the first place,
Well, if you hurt somebody, and you should not hurt someone, if you hurt someone, then there are going to be serious consequences. But that would be under the civil law where they would actually sue you, the person who actually did it and the person who was harmed. So, I mean, there should be consequences to bad behavior.
Of course.
But right now, it all depends on who you are, It's not based on what you did.
They target certain people sometimes, I think, more than others, maybe.
Well, what I'm saying is there's not an equality between the police officer and the citizen. No. I believe in the right to make a citizen's arrest. So let's say you see somebody beating up somebody else or somebody ran over somebody else. you have the right to stop that person. And you can even, if you happen to have some handcuffs in your car, hello. He's on the table.
That's cute. Yeah.
I don't know if you can see him.
You have the right to make a citizen's arrest. That's correct.
So in the same way, I suppose you should have the right to give a citizen a ticket. You know, like if you see another citizen and they're doing something that you think is truly dangerous, even though nobody got hurt, okay, go ahead, ticket them. But if you're wrong, then you have to pay the ticket. You know, that's a way to balance it out.
That would be, well, here's an example. I was told once, because I nearly got hit by somebody pulling into a hotel, and I was just going to keep going, but this lady was very mad about it. She goes, you need to go into the hotel and tell the management that this guy did that, and blah, 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 and get him in trouble. And I was like, I guess I could have, and you should have the right to do that, but I just kept going because I was like, I don't have time. I need to go where I'm going. But yeah, you should have the right to do that. Like if you had time and you really wanted to pursue it, yeah, you definitely should as a citizen.
Well, you know, as a citizen, most of us don't have time for a lot of nonsense, and that's a good thing. So most of the time, we're not vindictive toward other people, even if they made a small mistake. We let it go.
Oh, he nearly hit me, though.
Oh, wow. Wow.
This has happened on multiple occasions where I've nearly been hit, but I'm fast enough to get out of the way, and an elderly person isn't. And this is why a few elderly people died in our city. This is a problem. Like there are people that are dying because people are getting hit. There was a lady walking to buy flowers because of her son's funeral, and she got hit and died because she was getting flowers. And this was in a shopping center parking lot in California where they give out lots of tickets. That's why I'm saying ticketing doesn't make people better drivers, you know. But I don't know.
Yeah, what I'm saying is citizens would actually only do it if it absolutely was necessary.
Oh, okay.
Because number one, they don't have immunity from prosecution. So they wouldn't start something. You know, you wouldn't start something where you were pretty sure you were wrong about it, you know? Whereas a police officer is paid to get a certain number of tickets. And if one of them doesn't go through, there's no punishment for the police officer. No consequence. Do you see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying. Like the police officer doesn't have a consequence. Whereas if you're a private citizen and you decide, well, this person hurt me, you better have substantial proof when you go to civil court that this person actually did that, or there's a consequence for you for having. Yeah, I get that. That's actually an interesting system. I think that would make more sense.
Yeah, that allows us to have equality with each other. Equality under the law.
Yeah, I mean, equality under the law, like we all should be able to, if something bad happened, to prosecute that. If somebody nearly killed us or injured us, yes, of course. Or if they did, you know.
Right.
That would make more sense than how they deal with it now. Right.
So that's a change I would like to see in the law. I'm not saying there's no reason for traffic laws. There is a reason for it.
Oh yeah.
You know, the reason is to keep people from colliding with each other and hurting each other. And that's the only reason.
Yeah, we do need traffic laws. I'm not saying that. It's just the way that they enforce them, maybe, like with ticketing, like isn't the most conducive way.
Perhaps. Right. Exactly. And I think Summer agrees.
Of course. Well, and also, too, I feel like if you live in a rural area, there's not as many people. So they're like, oh, well, we have to make this quota. We have to look for this. Even if something's not happening, we need to look for something. Like, whereas, okay, you live in a more populated area, a lot of people get away with more because they don't, like, they're basically busy doing this and that. And they're not going to see most of the time what people are really doing. Or, I don't know, I hate to say it, but the more businesses you put in, the more people's driving is just getting worse and worse. And because there's no consequence really. Is there any consequence for your bad driving? Not really.
Well, if you hit somebody, there will be.
Yeah, if you hit somebody, but most of the time you're not going to end up hitting somebody. You're just going to be dropped. I've had a lot as a pedestrian. I'm lucky. Nothing bad has ever happened to me, but I feel like a few times I've become very close. If I didn't have a quick reaction to something could have happened to me. And it just makes me feel bad for older people or somebody who's disabled. How are they going to cross the street that fast? They can't. And I literally just see people who are like screaming at a grandma, like she's 90 years old, barely walking across the street. They're like, get across. And just like, there's no consequence for them. But I guess once they hit somebody, then there might be. Okay. But that's just.
Well, what used to happen is if it's a young person, and young people sometimes don't know how to behave. What used to happen is an older person would show up and teach them a lesson. Really.
Yeah.
So an older man.
Yeah, they would probably punch
to
him
a
out.
younger man. You know, that's how bonobos teach each other.
Yeah.
How to behave.
And I'm not advocating violence, but just the way that, these things seem to be happening more and more lately. I think violence is horrible, but now there's no consequence for, oh, you're rude to an older person. Or, there's. But it is what it is. I hate to say it. Like, when you live in an urban area, there's the consequence that traffic just gets worse. Maybe I just don't like it. But this is just society. They're pushing more to build more things, to have more empty buildings. So I don't know. They think it's great. I don't, but what can I do about it? Nothing. You can move. That's your option.
Yeah. Well, that's overpopulation for you, I guess.
Yeah. So that's a different issue entirely, really. But in the case of, I think what you're talking about would be good. How would that be implemented, though? Like, how do you think we could change people's minds about this?
Well, instead of police cars patrolling places, the police could stay where they are and people could report what was going on. And if they have to, they could immediately arrest somebody on site and immediately report that to the police. So it's not like you had to keep a jail in your house for people you arrested. You would take them to the county jail or whatever, and you would make a report. So it wouldn't be like you kidnapped somebody. You understand?
I see what you're saying. Rather than having the police out patrolling, you feel like citizens we all have phones nowadays, most of us, that we could communicate with the police. They can come get them. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So and we would only ever do it if it was absolutely necessary. We wouldn't go around, arresting people for no reason, because we don't get paid for that. We don't.
No, we don't.
We have lives and we're trying to live our lives.
Whereas
the police think it's their job to arrest as many people as possible, and that's wrong.
Yeah. And that doesn't really.
Yeah, or to ticket people for revenue.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, but maybe people will change their minds on this. You just have to kind of keep talking about it.
Yeah.
So was that all with that topic, or like, do you have any thoughts on this topic?
Do you have another? I think you.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't share about that
book. Yeah, right.
Yeah, book. So anyway, like, okay, some people think it's like a contest. You have to read like X number of books, like by this date. And I don't do that anymore. I read when I have time, and I've been trying to be more selective. Like, I used to be like, oh, like I have to finish this book, like even if it's horrible. And I'm like, no, if a book's horrible within the first chapter, I do not have to finish this book. So lately, like I've been reading more biographies or just historical texts and some historical fiction, but just things that are interesting to me. And I do like the Beatles. I'm not like completely a fangirl, but I like just reading about their music. And it's interesting. I'm reading this biography about John Lennon, but the writer knows from the beginning he kind of had a troubled life. It wasn't like, oh, he's perfect. And anybody who kind of worships celebrities, I think you need to be aware these people had very troubled lives. A lot of creative people come from very problematic backgrounds, which is expressed through their music or their art or their acting. So anyway, this book's just interesting because it's like the first few 100 pages are talking about how John Lennon grew up, and it's about how his mother and father, they were married, but their marriage was very troubled, and Aunt Mimi raised John Lennon, and she wanted him to go to school and make something of himself, but he scored very well. Like in his early years, like he was a voracious reader, but by the time he was 11 and he was at school, he was playing pranks with his friends. He wasn't that interested in learning, basically. He just wanted to have fun with his friends. And in the 50s, they were listening to music on the radio, and I guess Elvis was one of his inspirations, as Billie Holiday. So they decided to start a band called the Quarrymen. And the first part of the book's just talking about how he started this band, and then he meets Paul McCartney, who actually was more musically talented than John Lennon. Like, I'm not saying John Lennon wasn't a good singer, but Paul McCartney from a young age could play the piano. He knew how to play the guitar. He could read music. Whereas John Lennon, his mom taught him how to play guitar on a banjo, so he could only play 4 chords, not all 6. So it's actually Paul McCartney. Like, people get really weird about this in the Beatles. They're like, Paul McCartney stuck up. He thinks he took so much credit for the Beatles, but it is actually kind of true. Paul McCartney taught John Lennon how to write music, how to play the guitar. And Paul McCartney was 14 at the time, and John Lennon was 16. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. Like, all this, people get so weird about it. I'm like, I like their music, but I don't get all this obsession, like, where people get offended about things, because that was, this person writing the book has just shown, well, this was kind of fact. Like, Paul McCartney knew more about the guitar and music, and he taught John Lennon. And not only that, George Harrison was actually a little bit more talented on the guitar than Paul McCartney, because his mom encouraged him not to pursue his studies at all and just play the guitar.
Oh, wow. That's an interesting thing I didn't know.
Yeah. So I'm learning all these things about their childhood. This book is kind of cool because it's not, the book's premise was, we're not just going to talk about the heyday of the Beatles. We're going to tell you more about their childhood, and like it's about John Lennon primarily, but it's giving you snippets of how they all came together to form their band. So far I'm just like into the first 100 pages, but I like it because it just gives you a different perspective on the Beatles that you might not have. And I also like to share this. Like, I like music, but I don't get the cult of celebrity about music where people get very protective and they're like, well, this person is perfect. They didn't have any problems in their life. When actually, in all actuality, most musicians are very troubled people, and their music is an expression of these things. Just like with actors, many actors come from very troubled backgrounds as well, you know?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So what was his aunt like? What was she?
Oh, she's interesting. Okay, she was very proper British lady. Like, she was a nurse, and then she worked as a secretary, and she aspired to be upper, like, middle class. Like, they lived in a nice house. She had married a dairyman who had to sell his well, actually during the war they took his farm they turned it into like a military base. So after the war, like, I guess he just started working in other fields. Like, he did a little bit of security, but she aspired to be affluent. And when they didn't have as much money, what she did to rectify that was they took in a boarder, but she only wanted boarders that were students going to a veterinarian school, because she wanted John to be around people who had academic aspirations. So she was very proper. She wanted John to go to school and pursue an academic career, which obviously that did not happen for him. But even when he was failing all of his classes, when it was time for him to be placed in the college, she did go down to school. She goes, you need to do something for John. So they worked with her and they got him into an art college, but that was because Mimi like pushed for him to do that. So she wanted good things for him, but this musical career wasn't what she envisioned for him. So he was able to go to art college, and right now I'm at the part where he's at art college right now and he's still playing music, and I guess him and Paul McCartney are deciding they want to split off and start their own band. So I'm just like at the beginning of the book because, like I said, it's not a contest to see like how many books I can read. I read when I have time and I read what I find interesting. So I'm going to continue reading it and I'll share more, you know, if I find it interesting and things like that.
So basically, they confiscated the farm?
Yeah, during the war, they took people's farms. You know, like how we have the Quartering Act where you couldn't just take over houses, but you still can in Britain. Like they took people's farms. Like this has happened in books that I read too, where people had farms and they're like, here's your farm. It's ours now for the war. They just took it over. You can still live in your house, but they just took over your farm. And after the war, like your business kind of has perished because it was no longer yours.
Wow. So they never gave them. Did they give it back?
No, like it just, they took it. That was that.
Wow.
I mean, I guess he could have maybe went to court and fought it, but I guess he just decided, well, this is a war and it's what it is. And he just kind of went in.
Yeah. But when the war is over, the reason for it is gone.
Well, I think his business had just been at that point because they took it over and he wasn't able to work on it anymore. It was a dairy farm and the government had basically requisitioned all his supplies and resources. So I guess other businesses bought the land from him. Like from what I understood, his business had been destroyed because of the war.
So what did they do with the cows?
I think they sold the land and somebody probably bought the cows.
Okay, wait a minute. The government took over the dairy farm.
Yeah, they took over the dairy farm and they took over all the land. So they took everything over during the war, but after the war he still had the land, but he didn't have the animals from what I understood.
What did the government do with the animals? Is what I meant.
Well, they provided milk probably. That's what, like in another book I read, it didn't go into many details here, but in another book I read, they requisitioned the farm. And the dairy cows provided milk for the soldiers and the meat, you know. So basically the farm went to feeding the troops.
Okay. Very interesting. I think that's the most interesting part that I learned right there. That is awful. Yeah, that is terrible. I mean, I can understand an emergency type thing like that, you know, for a few months or whatever. But if it never comes back to you, then that is a total confiscation. And it's not just for temporary use.
Well, I think in the other book I read, the person did get their farm back after the war. But during the war, like the business was essentially appropriated by the government. This happened with other businesses too, like shipping businesses. In Britain, they don't have the Quartering Act. So yeah, they can take over your business. It can become part of the war effort, you know?
Well, I'm not sure that we don't have, I mean, we have public domain, and I understand people are losing their land close to the Mexican border as that is being taken over in order to build a wall.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's even happening, but
yeah,
that's what I've heard.
That's kind of a tricky thing with the whole wall thing. They can't even build the wall like right next to the Mexican border. It always has to be a couple miles away. And I've read before or watched documentaries previously that people's property were destroyed anyway. Like people who had businesses, one man had like a golf course and it was ruined because they had to put all these electric fences through it. And nobody wanted to go there and play golf anymore because obviously, like, do you want to go play golf next to an electric fence?
Well, see, this is another one of those tit for tat things. How about if you did that to someone if the government does that to someone, they have the same recourse to do to them what they have to any other person. In other words, no immunity for the government. Don't you think that would be a good idea?
Yeah, it would be. But how are we going to get people to realize that's the way it should be? Because right now we have two extreme sides. Like, there's people that are just so pro-Trump and pro-wall. They don't care about these people whose land and businesses have been ruined, or this lady who had all her dogs shot because here comes the wall 2 miles away from the Mexican border. And guess what? People still climb over it because this wall is so good at keeping people out, by the way. It works beautifully. So what happened to her was her dogs were all shot because the people crossing the wall didn't want the dogs to bark because they thought, oh, Border Patrol might hear them, so they shot her dogs.
Well, here's the other thing, you know, whereas I'm not for the wall, I am for every property owner's right to say, hey, you can't pass through my property. And I think that it would be okay for a property owner to shoot somebody climbing into their property. That's completely different. But so that's, yeah, I think that we need to empower landowners. Yeah. You know, landowners should have the right to shoot any trespassers, but the government shouldn't be the one who's deciding who can pass through your property or not.
But guess what was happening? Was it even her like trying to defend her land, or the government? Like, it was the people, they were crossing over.
Yeah, I understand. I understand, but they don't have a right to shoot her dogs, and she does have the right to shoot them.
Yeah,
this is what I'm saying. Yeah, I think that she would be afraid to shoot the intruders because if she did, she might get prosecuted. You understand what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying. Like, she would be afraid to shoot the intruder, but then the intruder has the right to, like, basically, which is so unfair. Like, it's her property.
Yeah.
No property rights.
So it's not, you know, a lot of people who are very conservative disagree with me about the wall because they say, well, Aya, don't you have a fence, and aren't you trying to keep people out of your yard? Well, yes, because it's my yard. The problem is that we don't respect private property enough. If we did respect private property, then nobody could pass through those lands simply because it belongs to somebody else. And they would have to, like, go through the public road where, you know, there is a border crossing, right? There's a border crossing, and you can do that. And then the government can even say, oh, you can come in or you can't come in. But if you're going to build that wall thing, what's going to happen is exactly what you've described. People are going to be dropping into other people's property from the wall. So,
I think the wall is what created the problem in the first place, because these people always came. But when you put the wall up, they started crossing there, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. So this is what I think. I think we need to strengthen private property to the point that each and every one of us has the right to be our own immigration control for our property, not for somebody else's property, but just our
property. Yeah. Okay. My view on immigration is, I kind of take the libertarian perspective on it, but I don't agree with the Democrats either, because here's the thing. Like, I think there should be free movement of people to public places that they want to go, but I don't think you should get some sort of, like, government incentive, like money, if you want to come to another country. Like, I don't think, like, you should get, like, welfare if you're immigrating to another country, like some sort of, you know, I don't think you should be eligible for those things. Like, let people come and go if they want to work for somebody. I'm all for that. Like Gary Johnson, like, where if people want to work for somebody, yes, but I don't think that there should be some sort of incentive. Like, and I know they're saying, well, nobody gets incentives, but that's not really true, because you can, okay, we know the truth. Like, you can go to the Mexican consulate and get a consular card, and then you can get a California ID card, and then you can, I think you can. So the truth is, yes, you can get some public assistance if you're not legally in the country. But if you're not legally in the country, just there should be no public assistance for you, basically.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, if we didn't have public assistance for anybody, then there would not even be that temptation, right?
Yeah,
and that's what it used to be. It used to be that nobody got public assistance. Citizen, non-citizen, nobody did. And so there was no fear of that. It also used to be that we didn't have a minimum wage. One of the reasons why employers actually like for people to come in from under the border, over the border, under the table is because they can pay them less than minimum wage.
And we know that even franchises do this, like McDonald's, because I've known people that work at McDonald's, and there were people in the back. They said, well, they don't speak any English. They only speak Spanish. So you're the brand new person, but you have to do the like drive-through, because you are the only one on the shift that speaks English. And they're like, well, why? Like, obviously, if somebody had been here for a few months, they might speak a little bit of English, but they soon discovered some of these people were new. So we know everybody's hiring people that are undocumented, and they might not be paying them a minimum wage, and this is a franchise. So, why does it have to be a minimum wage? It doesn't. I don't think that's fair, to business.
No, I mean, so a lot of people resent the people who work for below minimum wage because as citizens, we're not allowed to work below minimum wage. Basically, it's not really against, this rule is not a rule to hurt the employers. It's a rule to hurt the people who have no skills and therefore could not be hired at minimum wage. They could be hired for less than minimum wage if it were legal.
Yeah. Or they could have an arrangement with someone. Like, let's say, I don't know, you were doing housekeeping or au pair work for somebody, and then you could live with them. Yeah. But then you can't do that anymore because they would say that family has to pay you. I don't know. They want to make the minimum wage something really high, like $15 an hour. And realistically, what business can afford to do that? Like small business, they're going to have to either close their doors, which a lot of them have had to with the increase in minimum wage, or they just can't hire as many people, which doesn't seem right to me. But.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm in agreement on that. So our news this morning was that Kate was in the New York Times. And did you say that Kieran also had something interesting?
Oh, yeah, he had an article about Julia Assange and the real reason that the Ecuadorian embassy decided to let him go. I would encourage everybody to read that article, but maybe read a little bit more because, okay, it is kind of interesting. They're saying, well, if the Ecuadorian embassy took him in, like to, give him amnesty, like it's interesting that they let him go. It sounds like they let him go because they were being penalized and not getting a certain type of loan that they could from the IMF because of their position. But I would read a little bit more about it because I'm not anti-Julian Assange, but I do know just Julian Assange's personality. He's very abrasive. Like, okay, he's a journalist. I don't think that we should discriminate against him, but he does do things that rub people the wrong way. And I know he had some hygiene issues and he just was abrasive with some of the people in the embassy. So I don't agree with what they did to him, but I think he may have, essentially they took him in, but he kind of dug his own hole a bit too. So it's a complicated situation. I would read the article, and I'm not saying that I agree with how they've dealt with Assange, but I have to be honest with you. I don't love Julian Assange, and I've never loved him because he has a very abrasive personality. That's just one thing about him. And by the way, I used to get in debates with liberals about this because when he first came out, I said, well, I read several articles about him. People came to him and wanted to work for him, and he would say that they weren't brilliant enough. Or there was this lady that was talking to Julian Assange, and she had a boyfriend, and Julian Assange just brazenly kind of got the girl to go with him. So we should not censor journalists. We shouldn't do that. But there are certain things about Julian Assange that are abrasive. So, okay, I guess it's a very interesting situation. You kind of have to read the whole arc about him and know who he is, his personality, and Chelsea Manning. I feel much more sympathy for Chelsea Manning than I do for Julian Assange, but we shouldn't prosecute either. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm just wondering what the procedure should be when somebody seeks asylum and you grant them asylum and then you no longer want to grant them asylum. I think you should let them shop around for another embassy where they could get asylum rather than just turning them over to the authorities.
That's actually they're saying that Ecuador kind of broke their certain treaties that they're a part of because he did that. But basically they said Julian Assange is a brat. That's what it boiled down to, was that Julian Assange rubbed the Ecuadorian embassy the wrong way for many years and they regretted taking him in. So the truth of the story is they've been having this little like feud going for a few years, but because they took him in, they said we have to put up with him. But I think they just reached a breaking point where they don't want to deal with him anymore.
No, I understand that. I just think there must be another procedure. There should be like an international procedure for what you do when you give someone asylum and then you decide you can't give them asylum anymore.
Well, yeah, there should be. You're right. Like he should have been allowed to like look for another embassy to see where he could go.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like the abortion thing. I don't think that a woman necessarily has to harbor a fetus within herself against her will. But if there's any way to shop around to save that fetus, you know, if somebody else wants it or something like that, and if it's medically possible to transfer or to make it possible for it to live outside the womb, then it probably should be done.
I think that's a good point. And actually, when it comes to that topic, I think a lot of people decide ultimately they don't want to partake in that procedure because they can have complications later on for your fertility. And a lot of women do end up, because you are given options. You know, I guess this one is a murky one for me. Like, okay, my stance is I wouldn't do that. Like, I would.
You know, I wouldn't do that either. But what I'm saying is, if under the evictionism argument, that's why I thought about it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like, from a legal
asylum.
Like, yeah.
Because, yeah, it's kind of like, let's say we're up on Mars or we're in the space station. Let's say it's the American space station, and we have a cosmonaut from Russia there. He's in our station that we built, so it belongs to us. Mm-hmm. And we don't like him anymore, and we want him to leave. Well, we're not going to just space him and let him die in outer space. There's got to be a better way. That's what I'm saying.
I see what you're saying. Like, we should have given him, like, internationally, there should have been, like, since the Ecuador, I want to go back to that article because there was, like, a certain wording that they had about how basically the Ecuadorian embassy should not have dealt with it that way. So basically they overshot themselves. Like, they should have done more due diligence, maybe found a way for him to go somewhere else rather than just be like, you're gone and that's it. Like,
exactly.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I do see what you're saying. Like, and they should have, like, why all of a sudden, like, why now? They're saying it's because of that IMF loan, and because basically they decided, oh, well, we're being penalized. Like, we don't want to be penalized anymore. But they basically went back on what they granted them. Like, they said, we're going to grant you asylum. We don't agree with, like, how the U.S. has done this and that in certain wars. But, like, now, 7 years later, oh, well, we've changed our mind because we're being penalized and we don't like that. And we're just going to let you go. Good luck.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I feel strongly about that because I think we have to stand with our friends. Of course, if you have an unpopular friend, there's going to be pressure put on you from the outside. You have to be able to withstand that pressure.
Yeah, you have to. And by the way, okay, this is why a lot of the liberals that were just all pro, and they were saying this today, and this is or an article I read a couple of days ago, people are fickle in the American public. Like a lot of liberals who loved Julian Assange a few years ago, they didn't even know as much about him as I did. Like I read all these articles. I knew he had an abrasive personality, but they were like, he's a citizen journalist. He's doing all this great stuff for journalism. He's exposing this and that. But then when he started doing it to the Hillary Clinton campaign, we're not his friend anymore. We don't like him. Blah, 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 blah. Like all of a sudden they jump ship. It's fickle is what it is. I don't like fickle. I don't like fickle. When you take a stance, like own it. Like okay,
exactly.
Like just own your stance. I don't mean for it to, but I do feel very strongly about that.
I agree. 100%. That's what I think too. You should go by principle.
Yeah, definitely you should. But Democrats do not go by principle. They go by the fickle winds of whatever we decide. And I think I can say that because I used to be a Democrat, but that's what really turned me off of that party, because it's like, at least with the Republicans in general, they kind of stand by like their values a bit more in general. Democrats, I don't know, it changes with the winds, and it's very fickle. Democrats are fickle people. Sorry. That is true. They are. Like, and I used to be a Democrat, and I can say that. I don't like fickle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of the people who call themselves conservatives and who support our current president don't seem to be as upset with the bump stock ban as they should be.
Well, yeah, they should be. Now, I'm not saying that they're not fickle too. I think some of them that follow Trump are a little blind, like blinded by the cult of celebrity. Because what were some of the things I heard when he became president? Some people voted for him because he was in a movie, like Home Alone 2 or something. I'm like, okay, he was in a movie, so you voted for him because he was in a movie? Or he had a show. He has to be a good president because he had a show. Like, there were people, like, it was the cult of celebrity thing, just like going back to the whole John Lennon and Paul McCartney thing, which is not political, but people get very incensed. Like, they get very protective. Like, you can't, like, mention anything that deviates from treating them like gods. I feel like people treat Donald Trump like a god, honestly, because he was a celebrity. And I think they won't ever criticize him for that reason, because they view him as some sort of a god.
I don't know. I think it's the populist thing for most of them. It's just they were tired of being pushed around. And, you know, the usual suspects for conservative presidential runs, people like McCain or Romney, they were never really there for the common man, you know, for the ordinary working guy, whatever.
Yeah.
And even though Trump is, you know, a billionaire, and I don't really think he's there for the working man either, but he made people feel that he was, you know. Are you still there?
I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, for a moment there, everything, you kind of disappeared on me.
That's strange. So, as much money as people think, but it's true. I don't think he does. Like, I think he wouldn't be doing all these shows and all these things. I think he has money, but let's be honest, like, he's had some financial difficulties in his life. I think he's good at branding himself. And a lot of the people, like, there were a lot of conservative people that voted for Trump, but get this, a lot of people that voted for Obama also voted for Trump. So there's like several different kinds of populist people that he appeals to. He also appeals to people that like celebrity, I think. That's what I meant with, like, the people that watched the show and they saw him.
Yeah, I think the people around here who support him, and there are a lot of them, I don't think it's the cult of celebrity. And
no, not for them. Not for them. But I've heard other people just, like, on social media. Like, I don't know these people personally. I don't, like, care. They can vote for whoever they like. But they'll say, well, he had a show and he must be pretty savvy with business and he would be a good president. Like, that was their rationale for voting for him.
Yeah.
And they never question anything he does. And I guess they don't have to, but I kind of would, because you should question every president.
Yeah.
And I used to question Obama all the time. And looking back, I don't know why I was so smitten with Obama. Like, he's very articulate. He really resonated with me, like, I don't know, 9 years ago. But I don't know why I felt so deeply about it back then, because now I'm like, well, he did a lot of things that I don't agree with, you know, escalating wars, like things he said that he didn't agree with himself, he escalated, you know?
Right. Yeah. And that's what they all tend to do, which is why sometimes we are told that it's actually the deep state and it doesn't matter. You can vote Republican, you can vote Democrat, but the taxes are going to go up. And you're going to have to buy health insurance, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And there is going to be socialized medicine sooner or later. And it's all going one way. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter who the president is.
It was interesting this last election, though, like all these people that popped up and they all of a sudden had a political opinion. I thought it was very strange, some of the things people were posting. Like somebody said, why can't Gary Johnson and Jill Stein be at the debates? And there were people that just came out of the woodwork. They were posting things. Well, it's a law that says you can't be at one of the presidential debates if you don't have this percentage of supporters. But there's no law like that. And Ross Perot was at those presidential debates because they saw how wildly popular he was. So there was no law. And
no, it wasn't a law. It was just a rule they made up at some point.
Yeah, they made up a rule, but people were acting like this was the law of the land, and that if you supported this person, that you're just ridiculous because he's not Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. But before Hillary Clinton was nominated, a lot of people didn't really care for her. They liked Bernie Sanders, but then all of a sudden when she became their nominee, they just had to, and it's the same godlike thing again, they just had to back her no matter what. Like they couldn't question anything she did. It's just like, it's either her or him.
Right. And that's something interesting about how people do compromise, because Trump was a compromise. There were people who said never Trump. There were other people who said never Hillary.
Yeah.
And they compromised and they forgot about it. They forgot they said never.
It goes back to fickle. And I've decided, because somebody told me once, I'm fickle. And I was thinking, well, at least you're honest about it. A lot of people are fickle. They are fickle. They will compromise their values because once their party decides, oh, they might not have liked Hillary, but she's the nominee, they'll go with her. Oh, they went with Trump, we'll go with him. But they wouldn't consider voting for a third party.
Right. Yeah. And then there are people who never compromise, like libertarians. Well, they do too. But, libertarians who follow a specific idea, and they never get represented because they don't compromise. So it's kind of tough.
I guess you have to compromise to play the political game. This is why ultimately I still will vote, but I don't love politics. Because why? I don't want to say that to you because I know you're very interested in politics, but I just don't love it to that point because I feel like it's a lot of disappointment, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, and I'm not saying that I always want to just talk about politics. We can talk about other things.
I find it so interesting. Like, I find it interesting. I love, like, what you share about politics, but I'm just saying, like, I like a lot of libertarian ideas, but for myself, I just don't feel completely invested in anything anymore because of all the disappointment that's attached to the political process.
Well, I'm kind of in a similar situation where I'm wondering, can I move things that I want to have moved in the real world? Mm-hmm. Just a little bit. And it's way smaller than politics. But just, the question, when I talk about tit for tat or all of those things, they have political application, but they also have personal application, in relationships and in your community.
Yeah, they do. Because I guess a lot of legislation does start at the local level, right?
Right, but just group dynamics starts at the local level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying about the civil, like being able to go to a civil court and sue someone if they injure you in a traffic accident, as opposed to just some person giving out tickets willy-nilly, kind of, right?
It have nothing to do with safety. Yeah.
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 Well,
So do we have any comments?
Yeah, I wanted to check that because I didn't check that because I was getting all engrossed in talking. Let me check. You know what's interesting lately is I haven't been seeing any comments. Except you said you saw some retroactively after the live stream last week.
Well, I can't remember whether it was on this channel or the other one.
But we used to see more comments, and I've been noticing our views are going up, but I'm seeing fewer comments. So I wonder if sometimes they get caught in the spam filter. But it could be this too. Maybe it's the title. Maybe we need to think of a title of something that people are really looking for next time and see, like, compare the difference. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. But I don't always know what we're going to talk about.
I know. But maybe you can just think of something and then we will kind of make it about that. And I'll go, like, just tell me in advance so I kind of know and then I can be prepared.
Okay. All right. I didn't want to limit us. You know, this is our friendly time.
Oh, I know.
Friend talking to friends. So if we want to talk about something and it's not in the description box, we can talk about it and I'll change it later.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be in the description box, but I'm thinking for the title, like it can still be a friendly time and it still can be mukbang, but I'll tell you, like, maybe I'll think of something.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe I'll think of a title. I don't know. I like this title though. I was just wondering, like, experimenting. Like, I'm just curious why the comments are not showing up as much lately. That's all.
Yeah, well, it could be because it's Saturday and everybody's out doing something else.
Oh, that's probably it. It's a Saturday morning and other parts of the world is like in the afternoon, and then it's the time of day, I think. So,
yeah.
Oh, one thing I did want to point out is I noticed like you're getting a lot of traffic from India on some of your bow videos, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I got like 1 million.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and then the thing that happened was I put another video up. But there were flowers in it, and the bot thought the flowers were inappropriate, so they wouldn't let people see it. So it got like almost no traffic.
That's interesting. It's funny how the bot, like, it thinks, oh, this is something bad. But I've had some videos like that where I don't think there was anything wrong with the video, but it was like, I realized later on, okay, I was wearing this shirt. It was like a Thing 4 shirt. And it was because the shirt, I guess, is copyrighted. That video was virtually de-indexed. Just because of the shirt I was wearing in the video.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. It was like a video I did on my hair channel around Halloween a year and a half ago. And I was braiding my hair. But this video was de-indexed. And then I finally got it re-indexed. But it's had no views since because of the shirt I was wearing in the video.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. But it goes to show you, if you have a rocky start for any particular video, it's never going to go up. It has to start going really fast at once. Otherwise, it will not be seen.
Yeah. But the fact that your one video did so well does give me hope, because it just shows you that you never know which video is going to resonate with people. And I kind of like that. I like that it gives me hope, because I know I haven't really been working on my channel the way I should. But if you do want to start working on your channel, you never know, because you've been working harder this year. I think you've invested a lot of time, and I like how I feel like it's starting to pay off a bit.
Yeah, it is. It is. I'm happy about that.
That's good. And you deserve it, because I always was like, I felt like you really deserve that. And I want you to get to like 100,000 subscribers, and I think it's going to happen. I'm excited.
Okay. Only with your help. So I need you on board, and we're going to, you're going to have to get to 1,000, because to get to 100,000, you have to get to 1,000. And that's the hard part.
I know. Like with me, okay, this is my problem. I need to put more time into my videos, and I just don't, because I feel like I've been out of the house between 60 to 80 hours a week. So that's been my problem lately. I'm trying to be home more, or maybe I want to get a laptop and go to a coffee shop, but I need to make the priority to work on my channel more. And I haven't been making a priority. I feel guilty like when somebody needs my help, but I need to just have this boundary where I say I need time to work on my own things too, you know.
Right. It's hard. It's hard. But you could always tell the person who wants your help, hey, you could show up on my channel and tell them what you need the help for. And
yeah. Well, I realize this, okay, like I would never want to, this person has kids, and I'm going to maybe let their family do things more, because I thought, well, you know, I don't mind helping her, but I kind of just want to let other people do their thing too, you know. Maybe I just need more me time. Sure. And I think I'm going to do that and not feel guilty about it today.
Good. Very good.
Yeah, but anyway.
So it's been great. Yeah, it's been great talking to you, and I hope you get everything done that you need to get done today.
Yeah, I should let you go because I know like you're busy with Bo and Summer. So have a nice day, Aya.
Okay, you too, Julia.
Okay, bye.
Bye.